The rattling of the stagecoach was all that kept Katherine Daniels from slipping into sleep as the blazing Arizona sun beat down on the dusty trail. It was 1878, and the tiny 20-year-old woman had spent 3 days traveling west, leaving behind the safe confines of Boston society that had never quite accepted her. At 4 feet 10 inches tall, Catherine Kate, to those who knew her well, had spent her life being overlooked, dismissed, and worst of all, pitied. "We'll be reaching Silver Creek in about an hour, miss," the driver called down. "Last stop before we hit Apache territory." Kate nodded, though no one could see her. Silver Creek wasn't just a stop, it was her destination. Her late father's cousin had left her a small dressmaking shop there, and despite her family's protests that the frontier was no place for a woman of her delicate stature, Kate had seized the opportunity. What did she have to lose? In Boston, she was perpetually the spinster to be, the too small woman who couldn't reach the top shelf, who was mistaken for a child, whose opinions were dismissed with a patronizing smile. When the stagecoach finally rolled into Silver Creek, Kate's heart sank. The town was smaller than she'd been led to believe, a single dusty street lined with weathered buildings. Men in worn hats and boots lounged outside the saloon, and women in practical dresses hurried about their business. Everyone seemed to have a purpose, a reason for being there. "This is it, miss," the driver said, helping her down. Her feet had barely touched the ground when the driver tossed her single trunk down beside her and climbed back up to his perch. "Wait," Kate called. "The dressmaker's shop, where might I find it?" The driver jerked his thumb toward the far end of town. "Down yonder, past the smithy, can't miss it, only place with calico in the window." With a crack of his whip, he was gone, leaving Kate alone in the swirling dust. She lifted her trunk, thankfully she'd packed light, and began the walk through town. Each step brought stares from the locals, some curious, some dismissive. She heard whispers as she passed. "Look at that tiny little thing. What's a doll like that doing out here? She won't last a week." Kate gritted her teeth and kept walking. She was used to this, the assumptions, the judgment, the certainty that she was somehow less capable because she took up less space in the world. The shop, when she found it, was exactly as the driver had described, a small building with faded calico fabric displayed in the window. A hand-painted sign read, "Daniels Fine Dressmaking." Her name, her shop now. Kate fumbled with the key her lawyer had sent ahead and pushed open the door. Inside, dust motes danced in the sunbeams streaming through the windows. A counter ran along one wall, and behind it, shelves of fabric, thread, and notions. A work table dominated the center of the room, and in the back, a small doorway led to what Kate presumed would be living quarters. She set down her trunk and was about to explore further when the front door burst open. A tall man, everyone was tall to Kate, filled the doorway, his frame silhouetted by the bright sun behind him. "Shop's closed," he said, his voice deep and gravelly. "Old man Daniels passed 3 months ago." "I know," Kate replied, drawing herself up to her full height. "I'm Katherine Daniels, his cousin's daughter. I've inherited the shop." The man stepped inside, and Kate could finally see his face. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps in his late 20s, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of the sky just before dusk. He wore the practical clothes of a rancher, dusty boots, worn jeans, and a cotton shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms. "You," he said, looking her up and down in a way that made Kate's cheeks burn with familiar indignation. "You're going to run this place?" "Yes," she said firmly, though her heart was racing. "I am quite capable, sir, despite what my appearance might suggest to someone of your obvious perspective." The man's eyebrows shot up, and to Kate's surprise, a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Levi," he said. "Levi Ziegler. I ranch about 5 miles outside of town." He stuck out his hand. Kate hesitated, then took it. His hand engulfed hers completely, but his handshake was surprisingly gentle. "Katherine Daniels," she repeated, "though most people call me Kate." "Well, Miss Kate," Levi said, releasing her hand, I don't mean to be unwelcoming, but Silver Creek isn't exactly Boston or New York. It's rough country out here, not just the land but the people too. I'm well aware, Kate replied. And I assure you, Mr. Ziegler, I have faced rougher terrain than you might imagine. Levi studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Your cousin was a good man. Made the best riding shirts in the territory. Folks around here were sorry to see him go. He moved toward the door. If you need anything, most people in town are decent enough. The general store opens at 6, closes at sunset. Thank you, Kate said, surprised by the assistance, however minimal. Levi paused at the door. One more thing, Miss Kate, this town doesn't take to outsiders easily, especially ones that. He hesitated. That what, Mr. Ziegler? Kate prompted, her chin lifting defiantly. That don't fit the mold, that are too small to matter. Something shifted in Levi's eyes, a recognition, perhaps, or understanding. I was going to say that they don't understand yet, he said quietly. Give them time, they might surprise you. With a tip of his hat, he was gone. Kate spent the rest of the day cleaning the shop and exploring her new home. The living quarters were modest but sufficient: a small kitchen, a bedroom with a surprisingly comfortable-looking bed, and a tiny sitting room. Her cousin had lived simply but well. By the time the sun set, Kate had unpacked her trunk, swept the floors, and discovered her cousin's ledger. The shop had been doing decent business, especially with the local ranchers who needed durable work clothes and the occasional fine shirt for town. The women of Silver Creek, it seemed, also appreciated having someone who could make them something other than the catalog offerings from back east. As she lay in bed that night, Kate tried to ignore the knot of anxiety in her stomach. She was here now. This was her chance to prove to herself and everyone else that she was more than just a small woman. She had skills, determination, and a stubborn streak that had carried her through the countless times she'd been dismissed or underestimated. Tomorrow, she decided, she would open the shop and formally introduce herself to Silver Creek. Whether they were ready for her or not, the town reacted to Kate's arrival exactly as she'd expected. The women regarded her with cautious curiosity, and the men barely concealed their disbelief that she could run a business on her own. But Kate had long ago learned to let such reactions roll off her back like water. You really planning to stay, little lady? Asked Mrs. Peterson, the first customer to venture into the shop. This ain't no place for someone so delicate. Kate smiled tightly as she measured the woman for a new Sunday dress. I assure you, Mrs. Peterson, I'm stronger than I look, and yes, I plan to stay. Word spread quickly. By midday, several women had come by, ostensibly to place orders but really to get a look at the doll-sized dressmaker who had taken over Old Man Daniels' shop. Kate bore their scrutiny with the same polite detachment she'd perfected in Boston society. It was nearly closing time when the bell above the door jingled, and Levi Ziegler walked in, carrying a bundle of fabric. Mr. Ziegler, Kate greeted him, setting aside the pattern she'd been cutting. What can I do for you? Found these in my barn, Levi said, placing the bundle on the counter. Your cousin was making me some new riding shirts when he passed. Thought you might want the fabric back. Kate unwrapped the bundle to find 3 lengths of sturdy cotton in various earthy tones. Thank you, she said. Was he paid for this work already? Levi nodded. Half down, half on delivery, but since they weren't delivered. He trailed off, reaching into his pocket and producing a few coins. Kate pushed them back toward him. No need, I'll finish the shirts. If you have time, I can take your measurements now. Levi looked surprised. You're going to honor his commitments, of course, Kate replied. That's what responsible business owners do, Mr. Ziegler. Now, if you'll stand over here by the light. Levi complied, standing patiently as Kate retrieved her measuring tape. It was only as she approached him that she realized the practical problem. He towered over her by at least 1.5 feet. Could you? Would you mind sitting? She asked, gesturing to a nearby chair. A flicker of amusement crossed Levi's face, but he sat without comment, bringing his shoulders to a more manageable height. Kate worked efficiently, measuring his shoulders, arms, and chest, noting the numbers in her ledger. "You've done this before," Levi observed. "My father was a tailor in Boston," Kate explained. "I grew up in his shop." "And you came all the way out here to Silver Creek?" Levi asked. "Most people are trying to get out of places like this, not into them." Kate met his gaze. "In Boston, I was always poor little Kate Daniels. The tiny woman who needed help reaching things. The one people spoke over or around, never to. Here, well, I might still be small, but at least I have a chance to be something other than an object of pity." Levi was quiet for a long moment. "Folks here might be rough around the edges, but they judge a person by their actions, not their size." "Do they?" Kate challenged. "Because so far all I've heard is how I'm too small to manage on my own, too delicate for frontier life." "Give them time," Levi said again. "Show them what you can do," Kate nodded, jotting down the last measurement. "Your shirts will be ready in a week, Mr. Ziegler." Levi stood, his height once again imposing. "Looking forward to it, Miss Kate." He paused at the door. "Town socials Saturday night at the schoolhouse. Might be a good way to meet folks when they're not sizing you up as a customer." The invitation, if it was one, caught Kate off guard. "I'll consider it," she said carefully. Levi tipped his hat. "Hope to see you there." The week passed in a blur of work as Kate set about establishing herself in Silver Creek. Each day brought new customers, some genuinely interested in her skills, others merely curious about the newcomer. Kate met them all with the same quiet determination, letting her work speak for itself. By Friday, she had completed Levi's shirts, along with 2 dresses for the banker's wife and a set of curtains for the schoolhouse. The work was satisfying in a way her life in Boston never had been. Here, she was judged by the straightness of her stitches and the fit of her garments, not by her height or the circumference of her wrist. Still, the whispers continued. "She won't make it through winter, too small to fend for herself, like a child playing house." Kate pretended not to hear, but each comment stung like a needle prick to the heart. Would she ever be seen as more than her physical stature? Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Kate finished her work early and closed the shop, contemplating Levi's invitation to the social. Part of her wanted to go to meet her neighbors properly, perhaps even make a friend or two. But another part, the part that had been hurt too many times, wanted to stay safely behind the walls of her shop. In the end, curiosity won out. Kate put on her best dress, a blue cotton with white trim that she'd made herself, and pinned her hair up in a simple but elegant style. She was about to leave when a knock came at the door. "Coming," she called, wondering who would be visiting the shop after closing hours. When she opened the door, Levi stood there, wearing a clean shirt, not one of the ones she'd made, and freshly polished boots. His hair was damp and combed back from his face, revealing a strong jawline that Kate hadn't fully appreciated before. "Mr. Ziegler," she said, surprised. "Miss Kate," he replied, removing his hat. "I thought you might like some company walking to the social. Streets can get rowdy on Saturday nights." Kate hesitated, torn between gratitude and pride. "I wouldn't want to inconvenience you." "No inconvenience," Levi said. "I was heading that way anyhow," Kate nodded, recognizing the kindness behind his casual offer. "Then thank you, Mr. Ziegler. I would appreciate the escort." The walk to the schoolhouse was short but illuminating. Levi greeted everyone they passed by name, and Kate noted how differently people looked at her when she was with him, with curiosity still, but without the dismissive glances she'd grown accustomed to. "How long have you lived in Silver Creek?" Kate asked as they walked. "Born here," Levi replied. "My pa started our ranch with just 10 head of cattle and a dream. Now we run one of the biggest herds in the county." "You must be proud," Kate said. Levi nodded. "It's good land, tough sometimes but honest. What you put in you get back." He glanced down at her. "Kind of like people that way." The schoolhouse was already filled with townsfolk when they arrived. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm glow over the scene. A small band played in one corner, and tables laden with food lined the walls. Children darted between the adults, playing some elaborate game of tag. Kate felt the familiar tightness in her chest as they entered the knowledge that every eye would turn to her, cataloging her difference, measuring her against some standard she could never meet. As if sensing her discomfort, Levi placed a gentle hand at the small of her back. "Come on," he said. "Let me introduce you around properly." And so began Kate's formal introduction to Silver Creek society. Levi guided her from group to group, his presence like a shield against the worst of the curiosity and judgment. She met the sheriff, the banker and his wife, the schoolteacher, and countless ranchers and their families. "And this," Levi said, approaching an elderly woman seated near the band, "is my grandmother, Levi Ziegler. Grandma, this is Miss Katherine Daniels. She's taken over the dressmaking shop." Levi Ziegler was a tiny woman, barely taller than Kate herself, with bright eyes and gnarled hands that spoke of a lifetime of hard work. "So you're the one causing all the fuss," Eliza said, patting the seat beside her. "Sit down, child. Let me look at you properly." Kate sat, conscious of Levi hovering nearby. Eliza took Kate's hands in hers, examining them with the critical eye of someone who understood craftsmanship. "Good hands," she declared. "Strong, skilled, you've been sewing a long time." "Since I was a child," Kate confirmed. Eliza nodded. "I've heard about your work. Mrs. Peterson showed me her new dress, fine stitching. Better than old Daniels, if you don't mind my saying so." Kate blushed. "Thank you. People talking about how you're too small for frontier life," Eliza continued, her directness catching Kate off guard. "Nonsense, I say. I came out here as a bride in 32, stood no taller than you, and I buried 3 husbands and raised 7 children." Kate couldn't help but smile. "You give me hope, Mrs. Ziegler." "Eliza, child, and hope is good, but determination is better." She glanced up at her grandson. "Levi, stop hovering and go fetch us some punch. Miss Daniels and I are getting acquainted." Levi chuckled and moved off toward the refreshment table. "He's a good boy," Eliza said, watching him go. "Too serious sometimes, but solid, like oak." "He's been very kind," Kate said carefully. Eliza's eyes twinkled. "Has he now? Interesting." Before Kate could respond to that cryptic comment, Eliza continued, "This town needs someone like you know, someone who sees differently." "What do you mean? People who have been underestimated understand value better than most," Eliza said. "They see worth where others don't bother to look." Kate pondered this as Levi returned with 3 cups of punch. The rest of the evening passed in a pleasant blur of conversation, dancing, and most surprisingly to Kate, laughter. By the time Levi escorted her home, the stars were bright overhead and Kate's cheeks hurt from smiling. "Thank you," she said as they reached her door, "for introducing me around, for making it easier." Levi studied her face in the moonlight. "You would have managed fine on your own, Miss Kate. But I'm glad I could help." There was a moment, just a breath, when Kate thought he might say something more. Instead, he tipped his hat and wished her good night. As spring turned to summer, Kate's business flourished. Word of her skill with a needle spread beyond Silver Creek, bringing customers from neighboring towns. She expanded her offerings, adding millinery and fine embroidery to her repertoire. Levi became a regular visitor, dropping by the shop on his trips to town. Sometimes he brought small gifts, fresh eggs from his chickens, wildflowers he'd spotted on the range, a book he thought she might enjoy. Each visit left Kate with a warm glow that lingered long after he'd gone. "That Ziegler boy is sweet on you," Mrs. Peterson declared one afternoon as Kate fitted her for a new shirtwaist. Kate kept her eyes on her pins. "Mr. Ziegler is simply being neighborly," Mrs. Peterson snorted. "I've known Levi since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. Never seen him neighborly like that before, bringing flowers and such." Kate changed the subject, but Mrs. Peterson's words echoed in her mind. Could Levi, tall, capable, respected Levi, truly be interested in her? The idea seemed absurd. Men like him didn't court women like her, not seriously. Yet as summer progressed, Kate found herself looking forward to his visits with increasing anticipation. She discovered that, beneath his quiet exterior, lay a sharp mind and unexpected humor. They discussed books, debated politics, and shared stories of their childhoods, his on the ranch, hers in the cramped quarters above her father's tailor shop. "I used to hide under the cutting table," Kate told him one lazy Sunday afternoon as they sat on the bench outside her shop. "I'd listen to the customers' talk society ladies discussing their rivals, gentlemen arranging business deals. I learned more there than I ever did in school." Levi smiled. "I used to climb the big cottonwood by the creek and watch the cattle, could see the whole valley from up there. Made me feel like I could see forever." "Is that why you stayed?" Kate asked. "The forever view," Levi considered this. "Partly, it's also the only place that's ever felt like it was mine, where I belonged." He glanced at her. "What about you? Do you feel like you belong here yet?" Kate looked out at the dusty main street at the people going about their business. Some nodded to her now, called her by name. Others still regarded her with curiosity, but the dismissive glances had largely disappeared. "More than I ever did in Boston," she admitted. The summer heat brought with it new challenges. A drought settled over the territory, making tempers short and work harder. Levi's visits became less frequent as he struggled to keep his cattle watered and fed. When he did come to town, the strain showed on his face new lines around his eyes, a tightness to his mouth that hadn't been there before. "You're working too hard," Kate told him bluntly one evening as she handed him the new work shirts he'd ordered. Levi shrugged. "No choice. Cattle need water and the creek's running dry. We're having to dig new wells, drive the herd farther each day." "At least let me feed you," Kate said impulsively. "I made stew." To her surprise, Levi accepted. That evening marked a shift in their relationship. As they sat at her small kitchen table, sharing bread and stew, the formality that had characterized their interactions fell away. "Call me Levi," he said as she served him a second helping. "All this Mr. Ziegler business makes me feel like my father." Kate smiled. "Then you must call me Kate." "Just Kate. Just Kate," Levi repeated, his eyes warming. "I like that." As the drought stretched into late summer, disaster struck. A lightning storm ignited the dry grass miles from town, and the fire spread with terrifying speed. Silver Creek mobilized, men and women forming bucket brigades to wet down buildings while others rode out to help the ranchers save what they could. Kate was helping at the schoolhouse when word came that the fire had reached Ziegler land. Without thinking, she hitched a ride with the supply wagon heading out to the firefighters. The scene that greeted her was apocalyptic. Smoke darkened the sky, and flames leaped across the parched landscape. Men on horseback drove cattle toward the river while others fought the fire with wet blankets and shovels. "Have you seen Levi Ziegler?" Kate asked a soot-covered man loading canteens onto his horse. He pointed toward the eastern ridge. "Up there with the others, trying to cut a fire break." Kate grabbed a canteen and a bundle of bandages from the supply wagon and set off in the direction he'd indicated. The climb was steep, the smoke making it hard to breathe, but Kate pressed on. She found Levi and a group of men digging frantically, trying to create a dirt barrier that the fire couldn't cross. "Kate," Levi shouted when he spotted her. "What in God's name are you doing here? It's not safe." "You need water," she replied, holding up the canteen. "And possibly medical attention." Indeed, several of the men had burns and cuts that needed tending. Kate set to work, cleaning and bandaging injuries while the men gulped water and returned to their desperate labor. The fire raged through the night. Kate stayed, fetching water, tending injuries, and at one point joining the line of diggers when a man collapsed from exhaustion. Her small stature made the work harder, but she compensated with determination. Dawn broke to reveal the fire's devastation. Acres of grassland were charred black, and several outlying buildings on the Ziegler ranch had been destroyed. But the main house and barn stood untouched, and most of the cattle had been saved. Kate found Levi standing on a ridge, surveying the damage. His face was streaked with soot, his clothes singed, but he was alive and whole. "It could have been worse," he said as she approached. Kate nodded, too exhausted for words. They stood in silence, watching the sun rise over the blackened landscape. "You stayed," Levi said finally, his voice rough with smoke and emotion. All night, fighting alongside everyone else. Of course I stayed, Kate replied. This is my home now, these are my people. Levi turned to face her, his expression unreadable. When I saw you coming up that hill last night, I thought I was seeing things, thought the smoke had gotten to me. I brought water, Kate said simply. You brought more than that. Levi's voice dropped to a near whisper. You know what the men are saying. That little Kate Daniels worked harder than men twice her size, that she never once complained or faltered. Kate felt her cheeks warm. I just did what needed doing. That's just it, Levi said. You always do, without making a fuss, without expecting recognition. He took a step closer. Do you know how rare that is? Kate couldn't meet his eyes. I'm nothing special, Levi. That's where you're wrong. Levi's hand came up to cup her cheek, turning her face toward his. You are special, to this town, to me. The kiss, when it came, was gentle a question rather than a demand. Kate answered by rising on tiptoe, her hands finding purchase on his shoulders as she kissed him back. The aftermath of the fire brought the community closer. Everyone pitched in to rebuild what had been lost, and Kate found herself welcomed fully into Silver Creek society. No longer was she the too small dressmaker, but Kate Daniels, who fought the fire alongside the men, and Kate who makes the best shirts in the territory. Levi courted her properly, calling on Sunday afternoons, taking her for rides across the ranch, and once, memorably, to a traveling show that had set up in the next town over. Kate found herself falling in love with not just the man but the land as well, the sweeping vistas, the dramatic sunsets, the sense of possibility that hung in the air. I've been thinking, Levi said one evening as they sat on her porch, watching the stars emerge. The house feels too big for just me. You could take in boarders, Kate suggested, deliberately misunderstanding. Levi chuckled. Not quite what I had in mind. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I was thinking more along the lines of a wife. Kate's heart skipped a beat. Levi. He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small pearl set in the center. It was my mother's, he explained. Grandma Eliza thought you should have it. Eliza knows about this, Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She suggested it, Levi admitted with a smile. Said I was taking too long. He took her hand. Kate Daniels, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not because you need taking care of, we both know you don't, but because I love you and I think we could build something good together. Kate looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. How far she had come from the dismissive whispers of Boston society, from being the woman too small to matter. Yes, she said, her voice strong and clear. Yes, I will marry you, Levi Ziegler. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Levi pulled her close. You know what I first thought when I saw you standing in that shop? I thought, there's a woman with more strength in her little finger than most men have in their whole bodies. Kate laughed. That's not what you said. You asked if I was really going to run the shop. Well, a man's allowed to be a fool once in a while, Levi said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. As long as he smartens up eventually. Their wedding, held in the newly rebuilt schoolhouse that autumn, was attended by the entire town. Eliza Ziegler wept openly as she welcomed Kate to the family, and even Mrs. Peterson was seen dabbing at her eyes during the ceremony. Never seen a couple better matched, the sheriff commented to his wife as they watched the newlyweds' first dance. Don't matter that she barely comes up to his shoulder, those two fit just right. Later that night, as Kate and Levi sat on the porch of what was now their home, looking out over the ranch, Levi pulled her close. Happy, Mrs. Ziegler? He asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. Kate leaned into his embrace, feeling the solid strength of him against her back. More than I ever thought possible. You know, Levi said thoughtfully, I heard someone in town the other day, one of the new settlers, asking who the little lady was at the general store. And do you know what old Thompson said to him? Kate shook her head. He said, that's Kate Ziegler. Don't let her size fool you. She's the strongest person in this town. Kate smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the evening air. Is that so, Levi confirmed. And then he added, "She's the one who saved half the county when the fire came through, made me proud to be your husband." "I didn't save the county," Kate protested. "I just helped like everyone else." Levi turned her to face him, his expression serious. "That's what you don't see, Kate. All your life, people told you that you were too small to matter. But here, to these people, to me, you matter most." Kate reached up to touch his face, marveling at the journey that had brought her to this place, this man, this life. "And that," she said softly, "is why I fell in love with you, Levi Ziegler, because you saw me when everyone else looked past." As the sun set over their land, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Kate knew she had found her place in the world not despite her size, but because of who she was. In Silver Creek with Levi, she wasn't too small to matter. She mattered most.